Our final conversation for today. 4 new laws, one sweeping message. Nigeria is open for business. President Bola Tinubu has signed into law 4 major tax reform bills, positioning them as key drivers of economic revitalization and investor confidence. These reforms maintain the VAT rate at 7.5%, shelving earlier proposals to raise it to 15% by 2030. More significantly, households earning 250,000 naira or less monthly, and that's about 3 million naira annually, are now exempt from personal income tax, effectively classifying them as poor under national policy. Slated to take effect in January 2026, the reforms aimed to stimulate productivity, expand the tax base, and uphold fiscal equality. Joining us via Zoom is Dr. Muda Yusuf, Executive Director, Center for the Promotion of Public Enterprise. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Dr. Muda Yusuf. Happy Sunday, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, great to see you again. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you again. So, talk to us. What are the key highlights of the new tax reform bills signed into law by the president? What impact will this have on low-income households and consumer spending?
Well, first, I think we need to commend the president and all those who participated in putting this legislation together. It is a game-changing, legislation. It will help to, sanitize the whole tax administration ecosystem. It will have quite a number of effects. First, there is going to be a welfare effect on account of the fact that many of the vulnerable segments of the society are being given some significant concessions. I'm talking about exemptions in terms of expanding the threshold for personal income tax, which is payee. The threshold has been increased to over 100,000 or more. Then, of course, for small businesses, again, a lot of exemption for those who are in the bottom of the pyramid. Businesses, with turnover of 100 million or even more, from what I'm hearing, likely will be exempted, from VAT, company income tax, and the rest of them. Then quite a number of products that are, consumed largely by the vulnerable people. By the vulnerable. Products, okay. to pharmaceutical products, all of these things are going to be exempted from VAT and some other taxes as well. So from the point of view of the welfare of the people, I think the tax laws is bringing some significant value to welfare. Then there's also the investment effect. Of course, for quite a number of companies, particularly the oil and gas company, for instance, and some SMEs, there are also some generous incentives that are being introduced, to stimulate investment in some key sectors, like agriculture, for instance, like, construction, oil and gas, and the rest of them. Particular sectors that impact on economic development. There are incentives around sectors that promote economic development, create jobs, and the rest of them. Then there's also the revenue effect. Now, the current tax administration is fraught with a...
Dr. Yusuf, all right, so quickly, let me come in there. Before I allow BK and CKN come in, with households earning 250,000 or less now exempted from tax, what impact might this have on income equality and poverty reduction? How will this affect informal sector workers and those with unstructured income streams?
Well, this is going to have, because when you are exempted from this kind of taxes, I'm talking now about the personal income tax.
Yes.
It gives you a lot more discretionary income. You have more money to spend on other things which normally wouldn't have been available to you. So the discretionary income increases. It increases the capacity of the average family to be able to buy more things and so on and so forth. But this, of course, does not effectively cover the informal sector segments of the economy. Because in the informal sector, we have a huge issue about data. That is why this reform is very heavy on the use of data, on the use of technology. So there's a whole lot of work that needs to be done as far as implementation is concerned, concerning the informal sector. Because most of the informal sector players don't have records. We have, traders, for instance, in Okeane, in Balogun, in Alaba market, in Onitsha market, who are running businesses, with turnover of over $1 billion or more. But there's no structured, account. They don't have audited accounts. So how do we establish what their profit is, what their turnover is, and so on and so forth? So these are challenges of implementation. And I'm sure that the committee is bracing up for all of these challenges. That is why we have this transition period of about 6 months to work out the modalities on how to effectively, implement this without creating too much disruption. But generally, it's something positive because it puts more money in the pockets of the small people and increases their discretionary income.
How would you describe how the matter of distribution of VAT proceeds was eventually resolved in this law? Where do you stand on the resolution of VAT distribution?
Well, to the extent that it was highly politically contentious,
yes,
I think it was necessary, without going into either the merits or demerits of it, to build consensus. Because it was becoming so contentious, it was becoming a risk even to the totality of the reform project itself. So the consensus that was agreed to reduce the derivation, I think, to 20%, I think went down well with everybody, and it is also good for everybody. But from a professional or technical point of view, a higher level of VAT could have been easier and even generate more money for everybody. I say this because this is an economy which is about 50% informal. Administering direct tax, like company tax, like personal income tax, in an economy that is highly informal can be extremely very, very challenging.
So what mechanism must be put in place to ensure successful?
Aligned with the original proposition. But again, this is about politics. This is about consensus building. So I align with the consensus if that is what everybody wants. But it is the implementation that will throw up new experiences and give us more insights as to actually what will have been best, for the economy and for all the subnationals.
And that is where I'm going to. What mechanism must be put in place to ensure successful implementation? Would a digital or biometric tax ID system improve targeting? How important is public awareness and education in making this policy work?
Did you get that, Dr. Muda Yusuf? Did you get that?
No, I got it.
Okay.
I got it. It's about implementation. So we cannot underestimate the challenges of implementation of this kind of project, particularly by the time you come, to implementing across the states, at the informal sector level and so on and so forth. For the formal sector and for the big companies, of course, it will be easier because they have a better understanding, they have the technical team to understand. So there has to be a lot of sensitization, a lot of information, and that is why I'm happy that we have 6 months to properly prepare for this implementation. Because, for instance, to centralize revenue collection is also not going to be easy. We are talking about revenues being generated from customs, from NIMASA, from NPA, from civil aviation, or so many agencies collecting revenue. Now we have a very gigantic ambition of centralizing everything, and looking at how they will also get their budget processes. Because when you centralize the revenue, that means the whole amount will go into a central purse. Then you have to begin to give them back to implement their projects. And we know what the problem is with budget releases, capital budget implementation, and so on and so forth. So there's a whole lot of work ahead. But what is important is that this is extremely very fundamental, very valuable for the economy. And I'm sure that the committee also will not underestimate the importance and significance of sensitization and education. So that this doesn't cause disruption in the economy.
All right, Dr. Yusuf, you know, one question that has been asked, or one conversation many people have had since the president signed these bills into law, is whether government is prioritizing inflation control over aggressive revenue generation. What's your perspective on that?
No, this is not about aggressive revenue generation. Certainly not. When you talk about, I mean, to use the word aggressive, I don't think is the right word, actually. This is about stopping leakages. This is about minimizing corruption in the tax administration ecosystem. This is about minimizing tax evasion. This is about bringing more people into the tax net. So this is getting people to at least be individually and corporately responsible as citizens. This is what all of this is about. I just mentioned the welfare effect of the tax reform. A whole lot of those at the bottom of the pyramid are now being exempted, whether as SMEs or as individual workers. So it's not a question of putting more tax burden on people. It's about optimizing and making the system a lot more efficient, a lot more technology driven, so that eventually this will enhance government revenue through efficiency, not through additional tax. I mean, we have had similar experience in Lagos. In Lagos, when we had the big jump in tax revenue, it wasn't because there was additional tax or increase in tax rates. It was just that there was an efficiency in the administration of tax. So this is what is being replicated in this instance. But again, I must say that in dealing with the informal sector players, we need to be very careful.
Okay.
So that you don't go and create, issues for government in the way, because you can't just go to somebody's account and say because there's 100 million there, then you should pay so much in terms of tax liability.
All right.
Because you don't know what components of the money is transfer income, you don't know what component is a liability, and so on and so forth.
All right.
So we should avoid arbitrariness in the whole process.
Quite instructive, Dr. Yusuf. Thank you so much. Dr. Muda Yusuf is the Executive Director, Center for the Promotion of Public Enterprise. Thank you so much for...
Private enterprise.
Private enterprise. I do apologize. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We appreciate your time with us. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's quickly talk about this, Vikio. Do you think this would in any way, improve our ranking when it comes to ease of doing business?
Yes, certainly. Certainly it will. It's something that we had planned to do for decades. Right now, we are going to have a well-structured tax system, because for years, the small businesses have been groaning under the weight of excessive taxation, multiple rates, overlapping authorities and all that. Local councils are taking tax. The states are taking the same taxation from the same people that the local councils have already taxed. Look at what the telcos have been complaining about for years: double taxation.
All right.
But we now have a situation in which the tax system is going to be structured. Nothing like double taxation will happen anymore, because the law is clear. The law effectively addresses that. So, and what excites me so much as they say this man has not achieved anything, this president, if a president comes up with a law that ensures that people earning 250,000 below would not be subject to taxation, I think it deserves to be commended for that.
All right.
So it's early days, But like doctor said,
we must be careful.
we still it's still next year that it will go into effect. Yes. So hopefully they can put some measures in place before then.
Quickly, in 30 seconds.
Well, I have to commend the federal government on this. I know the battle that we went through to be able to get this done.
Yes.
It wasn't easy.
Yes.
Convincing everybody within the sector and even politically. So it was but my only challenge is that I hope that this will not be like our laws, because our problem has not been having the right laws, but implementation. I hope this will be implemented to the letter.
Thank you so much.
Lagos has lost a lot of its
yes, to this law.
All right, the Maestro, BKO, thank you so much for your perspective on the program this afternoon. Thank you. Sikian, thank you so much for joining us on the program, and it's good to see you again. Thank you so much, gentlemen. That's all on Journalist, and thank you very much for watching. That's all on Journalist Hangout on Sunday. Join us tomorrow for the regular episode of the program at 5 p.m. You can watch the repeat broadcast of this episode tonight at 11:30. We are on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria.